Where do I spend my money on IT? How do I keep my data safe? That and more on today's episode of Cash Flow. Hi, I'm Jason Waters, CEO of JW Financial Group, and welcome to Cash Flow, where we talk about the number one goal of your business, which is to create cash flow. With us today is Alan Adcock of ASC Group. Welcome.
Thank you.
Alan also has his own show called Cyber Sentinel, and how can our viewers find that?
So we're available online, hashtag Cyber Sentinel. You can also find us on our website, www.ascgrp.com.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your business.
So ASC Group is an Atlanta-based IT consulting firm and cybersecurity firm. We've been in business for 20 years, and we help small to medium-sized businesses, whether they have an IT department or not, to take care of their infrastructure.
That's something that I think is neglected in a lot of businesses that I see, and so we appreciate what you do.
I'm a new business owner, and I have a limited budget for IT. Where should I spend the first dollar?
Great question. What do you think, Alan?
Wow. So if you're in a startup phase, obviously every penny counts when you're getting cranked up. So oftentimes what we see is people operating off of some laptops, cell phones and laptops and some Wi-Fi, and that's about all they've got to get started, which is fine up to a certain point. Really what you've got to decide early on is what are those core applications going to be that you're going to run your business off of. And those are different. We call them line of business applications, and they're different for every industry. So really that's your key, is figuring out what those core business functions are and how your automation is going to work in those applications.
Okay, what are some examples of this?
So obviously, like a medical practice, it's going to be what EMR system, electronic medical records, are you going to use? What are you going to use for your sales and marketing department? What CRM are you going to use to manage those processes?
That's a very good point, and every business and every industry has specific applications. If you're in the mortgage business, you have what's called a loan operating system. Almost every business needs some kind of CRM. I mean, if you're a restaurant, you want to reach out to your patrons, or your B2B sales, there's some type of CRM out there and a way to stay in touch.
Absolutely. That's really important in today's world. Shortly after you get those applications and your core up and running, then you need to look at infrastructure, which is obviously what we do. You've got to get your cybersecurity system in place. How are you going to defend yourself? Most startups are operating off of the, go to Comcast cable modem, you run off the Wi-Fi. There's really no security in any of that stuff. So then you need to start looking stage 2 of, if you will, firewalls, infrastructure security, endpoint security. All of that starts coming into play to make sure that you can protect those applications of that data that you've been collecting as a startup.
So you're saying businesses need more than the free software that came with their laptop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Absolutely.
At what point do you need your own IT team?
That's kind of like asking, when do you need your own CFO? You got me, never. No, seriously, there's some point in every business where you will need a CFO internally when you're large enough, and I think the same thing probably applies for IT, but I'll let Alan answer that.
Yeah, so it depends. Obviously, it's different for every industry and every business. About 50% of our client base, we form their entire IT department, and we report to their chief executive officer. About the other 50% of our business, we report to an IT director that's an internal employee. And so where does that transition hit? It really varies based on the organization. Some organizations, the internal IT director is firmly focused on running those line of business applications, and then outsources things like infrastructure and security to a company like ours. Other industries, we take care of cybersecurity and data center operations, and they have internal tech support guys that handle desktop support, laptop support, help desk questions. So it really depends. It's kind of two sides of that same coin. At some point, 100 employees, 150 employees, you're probably going to need somebody that's full-time on your staff coordinating all of those IT efforts with your set of vendors that you're using.
Yeah. I think the world has become so complex that, that's why we're in these businesses now with a fractional CFO or a fractional IT department or whatever that may be, is because you need to have experts in everything that you do. And so
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a long time. Back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for a 30 to 50 employee company to have one of those people be a full-time IT guy, and he kind of managed that infrastructure. And back then it was okay, it wasn't as complex, and one person could get up to speed and manage that fairly effectively, and then calling periodically for help through other vendors. Today, one person just can't know everything they need to know in the IT environment. So it's very common for companies to bring in a team like us to help manage all that complexity.
okay, that's great information. Thank you.
Should I buy work devices for my employees and/or contractors?
I've honestly seen it both ways, and I've done it both ways. I buy equipment for my employees, and I'm talking about laptops specifically here, because I want them to have solid equipment that's working well. Because in my opinion, if I'm paying someone by the hour, I'm paying somebody to do a job, it's either going to take them longer, or they're going to get frustrated and not happy that they're not provided with good equipment to work with. So I always want to provide top of the line equipment to the folks that work with me, and that's kind of my take on it. But I'd like Alan to answer this question.
Yeah, so when we say devices, that brings, in today's world, that's a whole lot of ground to cover. So typically we see corporations own the PC or laptop that their employees use, and then the devices falls into those tablets and cell phones and that kind of thing. We manage cell phone programs, we manage tablet programs for some of our clients. So typically the reasons, though, that you do that are around security. If you are going to allow your employees to have corporate data on that device, so if you're going to have your corporate email on a cell phone, then really you need to make sure that your employees know that if you come to IT and report that your device has been missing, that IT is going to go and wipe that device clean. Right, we're gonna have a managed system called a mobile device management agent loaded on those devices, and if you report it stolen, our job is to protect corporate data. So we're gonna wipe that device, and when you find it 3 days later, underneath your seat in your car, your employee might not be really happy that all their life, which is on their cell phone, is now gone.
Right.
So it really depends on what access and what data you're going to allow that employee to have on that device. That's a conversation you need to have with your staff and make sure that they understand the ramifications of having that. It's a convenience to the employee and it's a convenience to you if they have their email on their home device, but there's risk involved with that as well. And they've got to agree to allow those remote wipes and report that the device is missing, that kind of thing. Other organizations, it depends upon their compliancy rules. Obviously, if it's a healthcare organization, HIPAA rules are really tightened up nowadays, and so you do not want to have any kind of patient data on a personally owned device. Those should all be organization-owned devices.
Let me ask you a question. What about a contractor versus an employee? Is there a difference there from a device standpoint?
To us, we don't care if this a person is a contractor or if they're an employee. We care if they have what kind of sensitive data is on the device. If you have defense contracts, you're a manufacturer or something like that, you're going to fall under a whole set of compliancy rules that are going to dictate how that's going to roll based on that information that's on those devices. Same thing if you're a government agency, if you're going to fall under NIST provisions, which is a whole nother set of compliancy rules, and they have information in there about how you handle that data on a device.
Well, there's your answer. It comes back to security and how are you protecting the data, how are you protecting your client's data. Well, that's all we have for today's episode. Thank you, Alan, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If you have any questions, you can reach me online at Jason Waters, #cashflow. Until next time.